So recently everyone has been talking about this new docu-series on HBO Max called Quiet-on-Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV, and it basically covers a lot of disturbing and ugly occurrences that took place during the filming of kids TV shows for Nickelodeon in the late 90s to the early 2000s, a lot of shows that you guys are probably familiar with. And a crazy example of this included these uncomfortable clips that were filmed of Ariana Grande. What you might not know is that a lot of these shows, they were created, they were written, they were produced, or they were just primarily managed by a guy called Dan Schneider. In the entertainment business, he was what's called the show runner, until he literally got run off the Nickelodeon network in 2018 after an investigation into his conduct that was triggered by the Me Too movement. There was some really awful, surprising allegations that came out of this documentary that were race-related, that were gender-related. The most shocking of all, Drake Bell in person opened up about inappropriate actions that were conducted against him when he was 15 years old, working as an actor for Nickelodeon by a voice coach called Brian Peck. And this was a really, really serious situation. And when all of this came out, this guy, Brian Peck, literally was convicted. He went to prison and it was kind of just back to business. You know, everything kind of just continued as normal. He started filming a new show and Nickelodeon didn't really seem to care about supporting him after all of these traumatic incidents occurred. So our goal today is to go over some of the major allegations from this docuseries. However, there has been a significant response from people in the industry that have been working with Nickelodeon in the past or present, and I want to give you their perspectives as well. There's been some negative stuff, there's been some positive stuff, so we're going to cover that. But specifically to do with the docuseries, let's start here. So the first major allegation that we're going to go over is centered around Dan Schneider, the showrunner, and he was basically described as the kind of person that would never shy away from the use of an inappropriate joke. But when we're talking about kids' television shows, that doesn't necessarily translate into something that could ever be appropriate, especially, I guess, when you look back at things in hindsight. I'm about to show you an example that's crazy, but it's one of those things that you look at it and you think, how is this possible? How do people allow this to happen? Where were the parents? Where were the executives? Why is nobody saying anything about this? Or why didn't anybody say anything about this? But take a look at this. I don't know how this happened, but here we have Dan Schneider filming in a hot tub with Amanda Bynes. Check this out.
Hi, welcome to today. My special guest is the executive producer of the main show, Dan Schneider.
Hi.
Now, you're the executive producer of the show?
Yeah, I'm the executive producer and I'm the head writer.
You actually wrote the words you're saying to them right now?
Yes, I actually wrote this whole conversation that we're having right now.
I see. Now, since you're the executive producer of the show, can I write?
No.
Okay. How about I play the spaghetti?
Nah.
No?
No kidding, I'll have some spaghetti. Bring the spaghetti. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's enough. So basically what we have is a fully grown man in a hot tub with a child who is in a bathing suit. That's not okay. That's not appropriate. But what's even crazier is that this fully grown man that's the executive producer of the TV show is basically admitting that I conceptualized this whole occurrence. How is that happening? That's crazy. But this is just one example. It gets even worse. Let's keep going. So I have a quote here from a Slate.com article that was written about this docuseries. Brian Hearn, the only black male actor during his tenure on all that's later seasons, also details a racially discomforting environment. For instance, he recounts being cast as a Girl Scout cookie dealer in a sketch which mimicked a drug dealing scenario and being told that his skin tone was charcoal when getting fitted for a costume. It's just like with a situation like that, right? You're a child star on a Nickelodeon TV show. You don't have any power, you don't have any authority, you don't have the ability to say, I will not do this. You're literally the only colored person left. You don't have the ability to just walk away and throw away that job, throw away that opportunity. And so you get coerced into an environment where you're forced to do things that you're uncomfortable with, where people are saying things and doing things that are making you feel uncomfortable and belittled and humiliated, and you have to conform. And this is all happening under Dan Schneider as the showrunner. You know, what's so crazy about this next part is that if you clicked on this video, just like me, you probably remember the golden era of Nickelodeon and just all of these shows that you enjoyed watching. But we never really fully grasped what was happening behind the scenes or the mentality of Dan Schneider as he was being the showrunner for these shows. But check out this part of the article. At the peak of Schneider's career, after his track record of having created juggernaut shows like Drake and Josh, iCarly, Zoe 101, and Victorious, the producer's power at Nickelodeon purportedly allowed him to push the envelope. As Cool puts it, Schneider's style had a little bit of an edge in it. It also really pushed the boundaries of sexualizing young girls. This included jokes about girls being slapped by sausages and wanting to be on the wood, and zoomed in shots of feet or tongues licking something. This was taken to a much deeper level with Victorious, which had extra content made for the web that, in Cool's words, the network didn't know how to deal with. These online extras included clips of Ariana Grande, an actress on the show, putting tomatoes in her bra, sucking on her own toes, massaging a potato, and pouring water on herself in a sexually suggestive manner. You know, this is so crazy. It's one of those things that you wouldn't believe, but I guess when you get to a position of such power, you have the ability to force your will in terms of executing on certain ideas that people generally wouldn't be able to push past their executive producers at the network. But I have to show you the proof. So take a look at this. So somehow people sat behind a camera and filmed Ariana Grande doing this as directed, and nobody thought this was strange. But this is Ariana Grande trying to put her foot in her mouth.
Wettest person in the world. Have you ever tried to get your whole big toe in your mouth? Check this out.
And then this next bit, somebody has given her pretty much like a phallic shaped potato. And the whole idea is that she's trying to massage this potato to get water out of it. And just, this is how it looks.
Sometimes I wonder if you can get juice from a potato.
And then this last bit that I'm going to show you is no weirder than the first two, but she's basically like lying upside down and pouring water on herself. And still, nobody thought that this probably is a little bit weird and not okay, but yeah, this is it.
Is it possible for a teenage girl to drink water upside down? I'm thirsty. It's not possible.
Like, it's just crazy because she's like 16, 17. She even says like, I'm a teenage girl in the video. So yeah, that was just weird. But yeah, this is the kind of stuff that came out of the mind of Dan Schneider in the TV shows, the massively popular TV shows that he was executive producing. So moving on from that, probably the most alarming part of this entire docuseries was Drake Bell sharing his personal experiences working as a child actor for Nickelodeon. Obviously, we touched on the experiences that he had. He gave his first-hand account of how he was abused and how he suffered abuse at the hands of Brian Peck when he was 15 years old. And Brian Peck was a dialogue coach for Nickelodeon that worked with actors like Drake, and he extensively abused Drake throughout the period that he was working on the Amanda show. So ultimately, Drake told his mum about the abuse, and that led to Brian getting arrested, and he was charged with almost a dozen counts related to abuse in 2003. And he pled guilty to 2 of them, and he served 16 months in jail, which is wild. But what's even crazier is that despite the evidence that led to this conviction, there were a number of prominent entertainment figures that supported Brian and actually wrote letters defending him, which is just, it's like, imagine being the kind of person that after all of this comes out, there is a letter with your name and your signature attached to it defending somebody that is a child abuser. That's wild to me. And Drake also exposed Nickelodeon for not hiring a therapist for him or providing any support following the conviction. The network was gearing up to start filming Drake and Josh, and it was kind of just back to business. Like, let's overlook this, let's pretend as if this didn't happen and just move forward with this. You still have a show, you still have a job, get back to work. And that wasn't a very appropriate way to handle that type of situation. So let's talk about some of the reactions to this docuseries. Many people were praising Drake Bell for his openness and for his bravery. There were many people that were criticizing Nickelodeon for their negligence. Essentially, they were negligent, and that led to a lot of seriously inappropriate occurrences happening within the network and its programs. People were criticizing Nickelodeon in constructive ways. People were getting creative with their criticism of Nickelodeon as well. And of course, Dan Schneider released a 20-minute apology, and I'm going to show you guys 5 seconds of that. Check this out.
Topics that I'd like to discuss. Is there anything you'd like to start off with?
Absolutely. Watching over the past 2 nights was very difficult. Me facing my past behaviors, some of which are embarrassing and that I regret. And I definitely owe some people a pretty strong apology.
All right, moving on. So apparently Ariana Grande was the topic of discussion on a hit or a popular American daytime television show called The View, where the panel were discussing the fact that Ariana Grande had basically maintained her silence regarding everything that had come out in this docuseries. Obviously, there was a large amount of content that resolved around the fact that she was clearly being involved in inappropriate scenes or clips or whatever that was going on in the Victorious show, but she didn't really say anything about that. And they were basically, I guess, criticizing her or trying to encourage her to speak up about it now that this is a topic of public conversation. All right, so this is interesting. There's a few people, namely Devin Werkheiser, Lindsay Shaw, and Daniel Curtis Lee, who starred on a Nickelodeon TV show called Ned's Declassified between 2004 and 2007. And they just started a podcast together at the beginning of this year, I think in February. So they went live on TikTok and they were basically mocking Drake Bell after he was sharing his experiences in the docuseries. They were literally making jokes about him. Check this out. All I'll say is this is not a good way to start a podcast.
Coming.
Daniel, I told you.
Daniel, we told you never to speak about that. Get back in your hole, Daniel, and give me your holes. Sorry, we shouldn't joke about this. We really shouldn't.
This is awful. Why are we doing this?
Because this is about us.
Yeah, so that's just not a good look. So after this live stream, Drake Bell then reposted a clip of this live stream on his Twitter or his X, and he was basically reprimanding them. He said that Ned's declassless, this is wild, laugh it up guys, laugh it up, give me your holes, really? I mean, I personally think that was a bit distasteful, to say the least. Right, and the last thing that we have in our timeline is that Drake Bell released a music video, and I'm not going to be showing you that video. 1, because I can't do sad boy music, I'm sorry, and 2, I don't want to get copyright striked. Alright, so you're all caught up now, you know the entire situation. And it's funny, I want to sit here and say, in summary, that this docuseries has now shed light on a serious issue, or a serious issue that existed. And it will change the way that people look at certain situations that might exist in this present time that somewhat resemble what occurred in the late 90s and the early 2000s. But what's so crazy to me is one last fact that I'll throw out about this situation, which is Brian Peck. After he got out of jail, he then continued to work on the Disney Channel with The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. It's crazy to me how bad people can do bad things and get away with it and then just get a second chance. I feel like that kind of person does not deserve a second chance. But you know what? More people know about these crazy things that happened. It's wild because as a child, as a much younger individual watching these TV shows, I had absolutely no idea that these things were happening. And even if I did have an idea, I wouldn't be able to fully comprehend it the way that I can now as an adult looking back on these things in hindsight. So I guess it just is what it is. I applaud Drake Bell for being brave, for being open, for being honest. I applaud HBO Max for coming out with this amazing docu-series that has really shed light on a serious issue. And that's just the bigger picture.